You're listening to a BGE podcast.
Welcome to another episode of my story on the blind grilling experience, where we talk about the history and food that got me where I am today. Whole hog barbecue. A lot of folks, when they think about blind grilling and all the videos and everything that we've done, a lot of them think about ribs and pulled pork, a lot of pork loin, pork chops. But to be honest with you, pork is really not my go-to, certainly not my favorite. Oh, sure, I eat it. I cook a lot of it for other folks, but it's definitely not my first choice. I'm not sure if that's because of everything that I went through growing up and all the barbecues and whole hog cookouts that we had, just kind of got burned out on it a little bit, or I just learned how much better I loved beef and brisket, steaks, tenderloin, or even venison and fish for that matter. But one thing's for certain, whole hog barbecue has been a part of my life since before I can remember. As a matter of fact, growing up, one of the first experiences that I remember when it comes to hunting was near Fort Stewart, Georgia, when we were hunting wild pigs there on base and in southern Georgia. It's interesting that there are only two types of pigs in the United States that run wild. There are the feral hogs, which we usually think about all the domesticated pigs that were turned loose and became wild. And then there's the Russian boars that a lot of people think of and really think about when you think about the wild pigs that are always talked about destroying crops and land in Texas and up through Arkansas with the Razorbacks, and that's a lot of times what people are thinking of. Regardless of the type of pig you're talking about, one thing is for certain. When they're wild, they're mean, and they can do a whole lot of damage. But what kind of experiences did I have growing up when it came to hunting these pigs? Because one thing we didn't do is just kill them and let them lie. One thing that we did is we hunted them because we were going to eat them. We were going to have some barbecues. We were going to invite folks over, and we were going to enjoy everything that we could get off of those pigs. And there was a lot. It could feed a lot of folks. And it was certainly good, no doubt about it. But man, there was some danger involved as well. With that, I think it's time for a story. I was just a little kid. I mean, we're talking 5, 6 years old when I was going in the woods with my dad down in the southern area of Fort Stewart and in Georgia. And one thing that he always warned me about was just how mean these hogs could be. We had a little bit of a system, a routine, if you will, where if we heard some hogs rooting and running around in the brush, that he would tell me up. I would hold my hands up. He would grab me by the waist and throw me into the nearest tree, because if those hogs busted out of that brush, one thing was for certain: they were going to tear up anything in their path. And so we needed to do our best to be safe. So we would go through that brush, and we'd go through those woods, and we'd just keep listening. And every once in a while, we would just kind of have to stop, and we'd hear some of them pigs. If figure out how far away they were, and we'd try to sneak up on them a little bit more. And sometimes they were in a really thick area where we couldn't see them, and my dad would have to find a safe spot to kind of put me. We'd keep stopping. We'd keep listening. And what was interesting about that particular type of hunting that we were doing is we were using muzzle loaders. And that meant that if there's only one person with a gun and they're using a muzzleloader, they only get one shot. And so if you miss, you better have a safe place to stand or be really quick and able to get out of the way while you reload. What's even funnier about that is some of the methods we would use to get some of those wild pigs to come in close enough so that we could shoot them, especially with as thick as some of that brush was that we were hunting in. One day, this old boy that my dad knew pulled up, and he was driving this old brown 1978 Ford LTD. This car was a boat, but it was just old car, dirty brown with a white vinyl top, 2-door car that he took everywhere. Well, one day we were walking through the woods. He had pulled up and wasn't very far off from where we were at. And there were some little piglets down in a ditch. We were taking off, and he decided he was going to go down there and he was going to catch some of those little piglets. And he sure enough did. He caught a little piglet, and when he did, that thing began to squealing. And so he climbed up on top of that car with his muzzleloader and that little piglet while it was going nuts. And sure enough, here came a big old pig. So he let that little pig go, and he grabbed his gun, and we heard him shoot. The next thing we know, we hear him yelling, and we hear that pig tearing up the side of his car because he missed. And that pig wanted him bad. By the time he got reloaded and was able to finally shoot and kill that pig, one side of his car was absolutely destroyed. The quarter panel, the driver's door, and the rear panel was dented in, beat up like somebody took a sledgehammer to it. And when we got to him, he had a big old grin on his face. He was so happy because he had got himself a pig. Oh, man, some of the things folks do, it's no wonder we call them rednecks, right? Oh. But I tell you what, we were actually able to get ourselves a pig that day. We went back to the house. We got it all dressed out and cleaned up. And within a day or two, we were having ourselves a whole hog barbecue. That pig was on that smoker, and my dad was basting it and keeping it spritzed with some apple juice. Mama was making some coleslaw and some potato salad. Folks were bringing over baked beans, making homemade barbecue sauce. And ever since then, I remember those days hunting with my dad and that old boy in that Ford LTD getting it all tore up because he missed that hog. But when he finally got it, man, we ate good. And we've been eating good ever since.